Holy crap, that is convincing. That's some interesting stuff. So, you guys have heard about parallax interiors, right?
Perhaps.
What's that?
It's an optical illusion where, like,
Shouldn't we
let's
do
just
an
say,
introduction first, or
Oh yeah,
how does this
whatever,
go?
we could do
whatever
whatever.
works.
I mean, if we're still recording,
Yeah,
then we could just keep this in for personality's sake.
yeah.
Well, I'm Jewish pile driver. Everyone calls me Jew, so I guess that's who I am.
And
Um.
I'm.
Yeah. Oh, you go. Sorry, my bad.
Alright, well, I'm Clanker, I guess. I'm just here to talk about Fallout and what's interesting about it.
And I'm GV99 Druid, the host. Episode 1, I guess, or just 7.
Well,
What?
whatever.
Why would this be episode 7?
Oh, because I've done a few in the past with like different people and stuff, and it should just be
Yeah,
added.
I never heard of that. So this is episode 1, part
Yeah.
7 of your podcast.
Hell
Episode
yeah.
1 of the Vault Dwellers. Yep. And there's only 3 people here because everyone else is a nerd. So
Oh yeah.
that's where we are.
It is what it is.
Yes. All right.
Anyways, to start the topic, why don't we start with one of the factions in Fallout?
Which one? Which game?
Well, I was thinking maybe the Enclave. We haven't talked about
Ooh,
them
yeah,
in a
we never
while.
talked about them.
I haven't played Fallout 2 yet, so or Fallout 3, but
You played
Just
Vegas, right?
well, yeah, but they're just the remnants.
the Enclave is just a organization mainly meant to preserve the American way of life. And if that means killing people with even a scent of radiation, that means doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty freaking crazy, and they have the greatest technology. And then you got some tribal from like the middle of nowhere, who's just like, I don't like these guys. I'm gonna blow you up. That's basically the whole premise of Fallout 2 in a nutshell.
Imagine
Basically, it's
getting blown up your whole oil rig by a
Yeah,
caveman.
your entire freaking faction gets destroyed by a guy with a spear.
You have all the technology in the world, yet that happens.
well, moving on. Do you guys believe the Enclave can return in some way or another in the future?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I could see it, but I wouldn't see it as how like the government interpreted it. I would see it as remnants.
So, a game has actually tried doing this before. It is Fallout Miami. It is re-implementing the Enclave in it, which is, of course, Fallout Miami being a mini DLC of Fallout 4. It's a very interesting idea, and it poses a few questions on the lore. For example, like what happened after Fallout 3.
Oh yeah, I love Fallout Miami, especially the OST for it.
Very well done, very well executed.
What'd you say? I'm sorry, I walked away for a second.
Fallout Miami has the Enclave, which they are going to be adding back in, and we were wondering, like, how would this affect the lore, since it is genuinely known that the Enclave has failed twice, both in Fallout 2 and Fallout 3 canonically.
I feel like it will.
Well,
All right. I want to put my into it. I know you wanted to talk. But let me just get this quick. I'm sorry. Well, I feel like it would implement it more because I think they said you have a choice to join them and actually help them out with their part of the story. They're not just an antagonist like you can't like help like in 3 and 2.
Yes, yeah, that was never actually possible in any Fallout game until I believe 76, which
Oh yeah.
doesn't really count.
what about Fallout and what about the Enclave in space? I know that subject has been touched
Wait,
upon
Van
before.
Buren?
Yeah, with Van Buren, the Enclave like get in space, if I recall. I mean, the Enclave is just the American government, so why the hell wouldn't they have a faction up in space? I mean, you saw, well, Would you say the Divide missiles are Enclave?
The Divide missiles are possibly just pre-war remnants, seeing how.
But yeah, but they had the American flag on it, so that's.
Of course, they have the American flag on it, but I believe it's more or less remnants of the military, less than the Enclave. Since
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess because the Divide is kind of left untouched.
And
Up
plus,
until the courier delivers the nuclear codes.
And plus, instead of Enclave armor, there is the U.S. riot armor, which is found all around the Divide. So
Yeah, but there was riots going on in the Divide, if I recall, before the war.
yes, that's true. But it's pretty obvious that even their commissaries don't supply anything Enclave related. Only arc welders, riot gear, all kinds of different things like that, simply to stabilize the area around, I believe, Death Valley, since that's where Divide is located. Correct, Death Valley.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we also have to consider the endings of Fallout 3. Now, as you know, Colonel Autumn could survive. He just walks away.
Colonel
The
Autumn,
main character of Fallout 3, what's he called? The fucking
Lone Wanderer.
the Lone Wanderer. I thought it was Lone Wanderer. Anyways, the Lone Wanderer is like, hey, Colonel Autumn, you're out of here. So let's see. If that ending is canon to the lore, then that means Colonel Autumn is still in charge of the Enclave. Although its numbers are more than likely dwindled after the ending of Fallout
Yeah.
3.
No matter what, their main base in DC will always be destroyed, whether you leave it intact or not.
Oh, definitely.
Which
Yeah.
results in President Eden dying.
Oh yeah, but Colonel Autumn is if Colonel Autumn is alive, where would he go? Where would he and the Enclave go? That's the real question.
I honestly feel like that they would probably move westward or southward. Either those directions to simply
They still had a base in
colonize
Chicago.
well, if they
If they have a base in Chicago, then they might go there to resupply or try to reorganize.
Yeah, because you remember like the Eddie robot? It was all the way from like the
Yeah, you're right.
East Coast in DC.
Eddie was in Chicago and he was made by the Enclave.
I feel like the Enclave, by the way, just on a side note, the Enclave are a pretty black and white faction to me, morally, and I feel like if they were to ever come back, they would have to do it in a way where that makes them more believable. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Just
because
not.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah. Just not like how like the Brotherhood of Steel just comes for every single game without a reasonable explanation.
See, the Enclave.
Yeah, the Enclave are very black and white. They're not really a complex faction as the NCR, which is funny because the NCR is, I'd argue, a better representation of how America would look in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, because the NCR is very organized, has a large military. It's a democracy. Granted, its democracy is a little odd, but
the NCR is not rather America, but rather a reformation and reentitled America in a way.
Yeah.
It's and the Enclave.
It's a romanticized version of America.
Exactly.
Old values, old world values with
they try world
They try to take different things from museums and history books and all kinds of different things like that, politics, government, democracy, and try to apply it to make America again. And honestly, I think that's their problem in the long run, because the NCR are replicating the same mistakes that America made during that time.
Yeah, especially with their invasion policies, where they basically just invade different states, claiming that they're part of the NCR now, even though some people don't want to be a part of the NCR.
Speaking of that, Who do you think is gonna attack the NCR? Because let's say like you got the NCR ending and eventually they take over most of the West. You think they'll start expanding east, and who will they face? Will they face the East Coast Brotherhood of Steel? Because I feel like they're starting to get more big as well.
Oh, the
Personally,
Brotherhood of Steel is definitely big. Now,
per-
now
sorry.
it all depends on what's canon, because all these Fallout games don't really have, well, besides the original Fallout 1, Fallout 2, Fallout 3, those ones really have a basic canon ending for all of them.
They
Now,
have their
let's assume that most of the endings are good in the in Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 4. So in Fallout New Vegas, I'd say the NCR is probably the most canon ending. Although Mr. House is definitely up there because the courier is just a wanderer and maybe he would just deliver the chip.
honestly,
Um,
I
sorry.
believe Mr. House represents the most canon choice in terms of story writing because it leaves a lot open because it keeps the it keeps the NCR out of Vegas. It keeps House alive, and depending on the courier's choices, it can also keep Caesar's Legion alive, which means that the three main factions of the game can stay alive for a bigger story later on. And plus, House is obviously looked at upon a lot in New Vegas's lore, and I don't believe that they would just kill him off just
No
so
way. No way.
just
Yeah.
so the NCR could be the canon ending. I don't think
Yeah, I
that.
don't. I never understood why the NCR really wants to kill Mr. House. I mean, Mr. House
Yeah.
is their supplier. I don't know why they would want to kill him, even
Well,
though he. I mean, just for expansion purposes. I mean, Mr.
Most
House is a
likely.
real. He's a genius. I mean, that's
Yeah,
just.
he's
I
like
mean, he's an average intelligence genius. He's a very smart businessman.
the
you see,
Elon Musk of the wasteland.
Yeah, basically.
The NCR originally in Fallout New Vegas' story was going to have an option to allow Mr. House citizenship and to basically convince him that they were the superior faction of the wasteland and that they deserved Vegas.
Yeah,
This
I think if Mr. House was put under enough pressure, he would definitely fall to the NCR. No
Yeah.
way. I mean,
If he lost a chip.
he would rather preserve his he would rather be a mayor of a city than a king of a city. I think in that regard, because I don't think he would want to die. I mean, he's very self-preservative. That's very clear from the get-go. He really doesn't want to die, and that's just like
That's
how he lived
everyone.
for 200 years.
Many of House's cut lines show that House isn't just this one personality. He has multiple emotions. Even some of the lines has him um getting nervous whenever you go near his console. Of course, these aren't in base game, but these show that House isn't just some one-dimensional character with one personality. He is just a human being as well. And honestly, I think fear would be the only reason why he would become a citizen of the NCR in the first place.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think the NCR would value him over just getting rid of him, because
He has
he has
experience.
done a lot. He has done a lot. Not just for like the
New
old world,
Vegas.
but for the present world with Liberty Prime. I mean, wasn't he like basically director of that entire project?
He was
A
assistant
very
in the
point.
project, but it was mainly an American slash enclave project, I believe. But he had a hand in it.
A
There's even
big. I know he had a big hand in it, because there's like this
Yeah.
picture of him in front of it.
I
this is
really
a
want Mr. House and the Institute to do a collab because that's where he went to school.
you see speaking of the institute, I don't think House is dumb enough to just coincide and say, "Oh, the institute's a good thing." Honestly, I think House would honestly see the institute as a bunch of how do I say this?
Yeah, it was commissioned by the United States before the war by General Atomics and Robco Industries.
The Institute, I believe House would see them as a place undirected, has no attention towards anything, and goes basically off the hook with what it does. It has no moral compass, nor does it have any real direction to where it's going. Like, they say they're doing the betterment of humanity, but they have no excuse. They have no
Pres.
sympathy for what they do.
Yeah,
Does
that's
that sound
true.
like
But
does
he
that sound like the best choice for humanity?
no, but at the same time, it does elevation, which would and it would keep him alive because we were talking about what if Mr. House implements all his like memory into like a simp's head and stuff.
Yeah, I remember we were talking about that the other day. We were talking about how, like, if Mr. House, um, if the Mr. House and the Institute ever met, I think they would become more so business partners, if
Yeah,
anything,
plus
and
the
he would
guy
want to become.
relies on a
I
bunch
think
of
him becoming a
robots with
simp is
rocket
more likely.
launchers.
I think House would treat it more or less as he does with the NCR. You see, he doesn't like, well, he likes the NCR for being customers. However, he doesn't like their goals and wants them out of Vegas in terms of um, just business in general. I think his business with the Institute would be rather the buying of a synth body rather than actually wanting to work for them.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of the Institute, this brings up a big question. How far spread even is the Institute in terms of lore?
Well,
To the
remember
Capital Wasteland.
In the Capital Wasteland, there was a simp side quest, if I recall.
Yeah.
Zimmerman, I believe, was his
Yeah,
name.
and he was a part of the Institute. He's even mentioned in Fallout 4, but he disappeared apparently.
Because we
I think
killed
this
them.
was to yeah, I think this was to allow like an open ending to that quest to basically not give away what the Lone Wanderer did in that quest at all. So that's a bit of a weird thing, but it confirms that they do have some hand in DC to an extent. And if that's the case, what about Westward?
Well, I think simps are just modern simps are just basically humans with better skills basically. I
Humans
mean,
that cannot age.
I think they would send some scouts, some what are they call, what are this shit, sorry.
You're good.
You mean Mark One
What are the hunters called? The simp hunters or whatever?
coursers?
Coursers, yeah, coursers. Yeah, I think they would send some coursers westward, northward, northward, just a whole bunch of areas.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
the synth that Zimmerman was after was a courser.
It was of course, this courser was meant to hunt down other scents and just like other coursers, bring them in. And what was it exactly that caused him to have sentience in some way?
Because he was like, man, look at all these synths I'm taking back. Why can't I do this? I mean, who's gonna catch me? Because it's like the hunter hunts the hunter, except,
Now, I just thought about something here. Uh, so the Institute has teleportation technology. And
yeah.
if that's the case, how far spread is this teleportation technology? Can they go across the world with it, or just are they limited to Boston? Can they go to DC, or can they even go to the West Coast if they want to?
That's true.
We don't know much about the teleportation technology, but it's possible that they can reform themselves in other areas as long as they have a teleporter of
I
some sort,
mean,
maybe.
we probably know something because you have to make a teleporter to the Institute at the end of the game.
Well, coursers can actually just teleport from anywhere.
yeah, yeah. I was
So,
thinking, we're talking about canon endings and all. We all kind of agreed that like NCR and Mr. House are the most probable endings for Fallout New Vegas.
Yeah.
But what about Fallout 4? That one gets a little complicated because
Oh yeah,
like
I'm
BOS
I'm I'm gonna be
I think it would be
M-
the Brotherhood of
or
Steel,
Minutemen.
despite their
I'm
crazy, or
I'm cut
maybe the
between
Minutemen.
I'm cut between two factions, and those are the Minutemen and the Institute. Now, this is a bit weird, but hear me out.
Okay.
The Institute. Well, it's the main character's son. In a and let's just say it would make sense for him to side with him. And
Yeah.
in the situation presented in this game with the four factions, in terms of the Minutemen and the Institute, it feels like that they are the Yes Man and House to New Vegas, and the BOS and Railroad are the Legion and NCR. Get what I mean?
Yeah.
Like those two are center stage, and the NCR and Legion are side, but they still have a play in the center stage. You
Yeah,
get my
but I
point?
feel like the Brotherhood are just have this.
Brother. Oh
I
my.
don't think the Brotherhood was meant to be like this menacing thing. Like
Yeah.
when the Pridwin flies in, it's a really amazing moment. Like I don't know when you were
After you
first playing
kill
Fallout
Kellogg.
4. When the first time you played Fallout 4 and you left Kellogg's
Base.
base and you saw the Pridwin, it was more like, wow, I gotta go over there. It wasn't more like, oh shit, these guys are gonna take over the wasteland. I mean, that's basically what they're doing, but
The
I mean,
Brotherhood were really
it was a more of an awe-aspiring moment. It was really amazing. It was really cool.
the Brotherhood in New Vegas, as well as Fallout 4, are just glorified raiders to me. They're fantasized in a way that makes them look like they're doing the right thing, but in reality, they
Oh,
are just trying
definitely.
to muddle up their They're trying to make themselves look like they're moral.
Oh
They have
yeah,
this code
they're
of conduct.
crazy. They're crazy, and I think Fallout New Vegas really points this through.
Yeah. It's
Mr.
just
House just explains it. He's like, "These guys are crazy. Get rid of them."
They're literally insane, and everything. Like, say what you want about House, but what he says about them is completely true. They're
yeah. He's
Oh
kind of
yeah, it's
speaking the
definitely
maniacs.
true.
facts. You know when you
And they would pose a really great threat against him. I mean, like he's like, what did he say? Hold up, let me look up the quote
speaking of
exactly. I'm
that,
playing a Mr. House ending right now.
is
Anyways.
the West
And you
Brotherhood even relevant? Because isn't technically the East the real one? Because isn't like the last remaining relative of Arthur Mac, like not Arthur Maxon, but Roger Maxon, I think, was.
Whatever the case, the West Brotherhood is still the Brotherhood in its own way. I will admit this though. I find it odd that at one point in development, the team had the idea of House allowing um, the continued existence of the Brotherhood in the Mojave. That's actually still in things like the manuals as well as the game files. It's
Mm,
insane that they even thought about that being an option because House isn't the type of guy to let these people live. You know what I mean?
yeah, not he wouldn't even let Little Caesar's Legion live. I mean, he
And
would because his chip thing was in his house, and he had to be like, you know what, I have to negotiate with them. So it is what it is.
the only reason he's letting Caesar's Legion be right now is because they're allowing the NCR um, a distraction while he does what he has to do.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I like how what Mr. House says. Because they're ridiculous. Because they gallivant around the Mojave pretending to be knights of yore. That's basically what they are.
it really is.
They're so nuts. They're so nuts.
With
And
football armor.
But you have to admit, like, the ending of the Brotherhood of Steel is definitely the most
Depressing.
no, not depressing. It's the word is probably like
For the New
it's
Vegas
like
one.
it's the most fan material ending because you get to walk with Liberty Prime again, and then just like
Oh, you're talking about like 4? Yeah, I thought you were talking
yeah,
about
yeah.
New Vegas. New Vegas for the Brotherhood of Steel ending, that was depressing.
Well, yeah, you just kill them basically in almost
The-
all of. I think canonically the Brotherhood just dies every time.
Yeah, because when you
the-
try to help,
and I think it's just a victim to the progression of the games themselves because they just want to make the Pit Boys look different in each game, and like I said, I think it's just a victim to that. So, and I'm not saying that Bethesda is defiling the original style or anything, but I believe that they're forgetting about the lore a lot when they add in these new things, such as the Pit Boy from 4. Um, like I mean, the Pit Boy from Fallout 3, because like where did the pads go? Like where did the things that people I assume maybe clipped on their belts or something like that? Where'd they go?
exactly, because in Fallout 3 and like 4, the vault suits are completely different now. They could just be graphics, but same thing if for because they were like a bit more different as well, because you don't have your vault belt on for 4, and I don't think you would have that on for 2 and 1. And like, are the vault suits and vaults like made different, or how does
Hmm.
that go? Because obviously you would have your not generic but common leather vault armor with the right or left shoulder with the shoulder pad of leather on the side with your rifle, and that would be like the generic look for uh vault um dweller going into wasteland. But at the same time, what, like, how much was it, how much money, how much time, or what they made new for some of the vaults? Because same thing with like the gex, because they only made so many gex for vaults, and that's probably and that's most of the storyline, because in 2 you would have to, no, I think 1 you have to get a water chip, and then 2 you
Yeah,
have to get a
one
gex,
is the water chip, two is the Gek.
and then 3 you need to get a gex so the water can be,
Wait, three has the Gek too?
yeah, 3 has
Yes,
the
it
gex.
does. It's
Oh.
intertwined with the story, and
Oh, I thought it was more of a, you have to find your. Oh yeah, your father has the Gek, or I forget what it is. I
Bethesda
don't know. I never
really,
played Fallout 3.
okay, so let me explain this. Bethesda really dropped the ball when it came to the lore related to the Gek. Because in Fallout 2, it was more of a creation kit. You know, it had manuals, it had seeds, it had all kinds of different things. And it was basically a kit explaining how to repopulate society and like make towns and buildings and all kinds of things like that. And then Fallout 3 comes along busting through the door and it just says, "Oh yeah, it's a terraform." Like, what?
Yeah, like, what the
Yeah,
hell?
that's why. I tried playing Fallout 3, but I was just so bored. I just
Playing it,
stopped. I just stopped.
And
I mean,
it's more,
it's because I played. I mean, I
once
don't
you
know.
play
It's
New
just I
Vegas you
liked.
played
I
all the
loved
games.
Fallout 4, but when I played Fallout 3, it was like, ugh, this is so boring. I hate this so much.
I'm not
Yeah,
saying Fallout 3 is a bad game.
yeah,
I actually
3
think it's a
isn't.
pretty good game. But my opinion is that I believe that Bethesda, some of the things that they did worked, and
And
some of the
some of it
things that
didn't.
they
Yeah.
did not work. For like I said, the rewriting of how the Gek works, for example, just doesn't make sense, and they only did it to fit into the story of Fallout 3. So that just poses the question: if they're going to go that far with the Gek, for example, what are they going to do in the future? What else are they going to rewrite? What
Yeah,
about the Enclave,
you're gonna find
the
your,
NCR?
especially with the story, because I'm kind of tired of your family member finds your other family member. What's it gonna be the next time you find your cousin from Alabama kidnapped by
Yeah, you need to
mercenaries?
find your. I'm honestly tired of the MacGuffin thing. I
The
just wish it was
MacGuffin,
like, um,
like a war,
you woke up in a bar or something shitless like that, or I don't
Here,
know.
or
here's
like,
the problem with creating a role-playing game, and having a family member. and that family member being a pivotal part of the story. You don't know that family member like you should. The game thinks the main character does, but you as the player
Don't.
don't. So it's this big disconnect that leads to the player not really giving a single crap about it.
Yeah, that's why I think Fallout New Vegas really excels, and they just, I mean, yeah, it's a revenge story, but it's it's
There's a
much more complex than just a typical revenge story.
I
Like,
really want them to
you have no
remake
idea.
Van Buren.
You're just trying to deliver this ship, and then this guy shoots you. I mean,
there are so
it's
many
not even like a personal thing. It's more like you had something that you don't really understand, and this person does.
So the funny thing about New Vegas is that the way its story is written, it's written in a way where you can have different goals once you get up from the bed in Good Springs. You could be, of course, wanting to go after Benny and kill him, or you could just be going after the package itself, or you could just be wanting to go to Vegas. You know what I mean?
Most likely, you want to kill Benny.
Oh,
Most people
definitely.
want to, but my point is that you can take it in a few different ways,
That
which I
is true.
appreciate. And you can even literally just spare Benny completely. The guy who wanted to shoot you in the head and succeeded twice, and you can spare him. And I actually like options like that because
Yeah,
yes, you
it
may
just
not
takes
use them, but they're
forever.
there.
Because he either gets crucified by Caesar.
But my point is that New Vegas just has a lot more freedom with its story.
Yeah.
Yup. It's an
Um,
amazing story because it's not MacGuffin. You have these choices of who gets to take over the MacGuffin. No, that's just the
it's
same thing.
It's, in my opinion, simply amazing. Simple because, well, the story by itself is very simple, but that doesn't mean it's bad, and it's written in a way where simple in this situation is actually really good because the story, like the main story is simple, but then once you get into the factions, the different things that you have to
And
work
past.
for and work against, that's where it really shines.
Especially with like
Definitely.
past references from 2 as well. Because you're already acquainted with NCR. Because basically, like your character, if you played the previous games, you would most likely want to side with NCR. If you're a new player, you know, you would side with.
Well, yeah, I think people would side with the NCR a lot more. There's a lot of appealing things about the
But
NCR
also, you
compared to.
got
You
Mr.
know, I just found
House.
that I played this earlier, and there was a situation where an NCR soldier killed this guy named Keith, and I had no idea this was in the game. So basically, what you do, it's like a little side quest. You know the Aero Tech buildings that no one ever goes to?
Yeah.
Yeah, those buildings. Yeah, one of the lieutenant there is like, hey, there's this guy named Keith, and he seems very suspicious, so you need to check him out. So basically, you can do a whole bunch of speech checks. You find out that he's like, dealing, like, he's elite, he's gambling, but he's like cheating, and then he's also selling drugs.
Yeah.
So this lieutenant, he goes into this drug house with and he says, "Oh, you should come along to cover me back up." So Keith is just like insulting him, the lieutenant, for like because his wife left him or something. It was like a little funny joke, but the lieutenant just shoots him, and I was like, "Whoa!" I feel like this could have been expanded on because you can talk to him and be like, "Oh, you just shot this guy," and then he'll be like, "Oh, well, he deserved it," and then that's just the end of the entire conversation. You can't do anything about it. There's like
Yeah.
no.
The
That,
NCR, at the end of the day, in my opinion, were overdone in New Vegas. Now, that's not to say that that's a bad thing. That's to say that in
Character
comparison to the time
development.
span that they had, they could have easily worked with the Legion as well. But back to the NCR, I believe a lot of people don't see the corruption within the NCR.
Oh yeah, there's
yeah, there's
corruption.
definitely there's definitely corruption.
Look at General Oliver, for example. He constantly wants to one-up Hanlon.
I mean, Hanlon did such a good job. I'm just surprised he's not in charge. You know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the idea of leading the Malpais legate into Boulder City and blowing it up as a,
Yeah, that was really smart. I mean, he should have been in charge of the second battle of Hoover Dam.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I mean, I feel like
honestly,
there'd probably be an option if Obsidian had the time to make like Hanlon like rebel against the NCR and become like in charge of Hoover Dam because he understands like how important this is.
yeah, true.
Something crazy like that.
Something along those lines. But Hanlon's story was very interesting. It really showcased the problems with the NCR, as well as the problems with our American military system. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hanlon really just embodied a guy who just did not want to see people suffer anymore. Meaningless reasons at
The chief.
times. And it's sad that most of the time he pays with his life during that quest. And like I said, it has to be one of the best quests the series has ever done.
I mean, he is head of the NCR Rangers, so you gotta give him that.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, that doesn't matter when there's only like what? How many Rangers are in, the Mojave? Not that much.
A bunch,
Well,
actually.
no, that's why they have like this mythical status. There's really not that many NCR Rangers in the Mojave.
I'm mainly talking about like near the end game when you start seeing them show up a lot around the Mojave outpost.
Yeah, but I mean, they could have had a lot more if there was like a proper military. You know, if they weren't focusing on like wave tactics, because that's generally
Yeah.
Oliver's entire thing.
Speaking of the
He just wants
NCR
to do.
Rangers, I feel like there hasn't been much explained about them because I thought Rangers were like a separate faction. Because you know when you go to the Mojave outpost, there's the
Mixed together and
that's
with
no
humans and made into that. So, like for example, let me show you an image of the centaur from Fallout 1.
no more
If
Okay,
bestiality, children. It's not good. You'll make a centaur.
this
let me
is the
think.
centaur from Fallout 1.
Ugh. Head dog, head human, body torso. You know, what it do the humans? Can the humans still
Well,
like fit in there?
the
Or
human is still there. That's the
well, I
weird part.
mean, like
Also,
no. I mean, is the human like dead or is it like sentient still?
it's
A little
sentient.
bit.
It is still sentient. And
So
also,
you
there's
mean
an
the centaurs in New Vegas and Fallout 1, they're there, but they're not real. They're not in control or something like that.
okay, so think of the ghouls, like their almost primal sort of look to them and how they act, and apply that to the centaurs because the centaurs
Oh, so
they're
then they're
basically animals. They're basically animals at this point.
yeah.
Feral, fucked up
And
animals.
also, did you notice how the centaur also is merged with an octopus in that image?
Yeah.
Jesus
It's a very
Christ. How did this happen? To like, why are there so many of them?
It's because the master was experimenting and
Oh.
he decided to throw different things. He decided to throw cats, dogs, humans, octopi, all kinds of different things into the vats, and that's what came out.
Do you think, and this is why I hate Fallout 1's ending so much. Fallout 1 was a very scary game, in my opinion. Because, like, in the ending, you get thrown into the waste, and either you become a super mutant or probably a centaur. Like, you're, like, all bagged up, and then you get thrown into a green pile of goo.
That was the mutant ending, and you do get turned into a mutant. You are actually the mutant that kills the the, the overseer. You like
But
you were the mutant.
in the regular ending, you just get thrown in the waste.
Yeah, in the regular, like the canon ending is that uh, the mutants are destroyed, the water chips return, and the
The
character's
overseer's
exiled.
just basically like, "Fuck you, you're out of here."
The
Yeah.
overseer's scared. He's scared and he doesn't know better. He just wants to do what he's been taught to do by Vault-Tec. And that's just sad, to be honest.
Yeah, it is because you gotta adapt sometime. Well, segueing into older Fallout games, I saw that Jewish Pile Driver uploaded a picture of Fallout Tactics Power Armor, and it's really weird. Always wanted to talk about this power armor, and especially since it's the Chicago Brotherhood of Steel power armor. Why does it resemble so much of the like Enclave power armor from Fallout 3? I made a
Yeah,
meme.
I thought it looks a lot like Enclave armor. If anything, it kind of looks. It looks even more alien than the already alien
Yeah,
Enclave
because
armor.
it's
It looks
like,
really freaking
oh
alien.
hey, by the way, you have today's homework? Yeah, just don't copy it mine, and then they exactly copied it.
Also, to add to
I
the
don't know. I
point,
think it looks really good.
It does. It looks badass,
I
but
would.
yeah, sorry, my bad.
Oh, it's fine. But I wanted to add on to one more thing about the Centaur. There was concept art for Institute Centaurs,
Really?
and there's a mod that adds them in based on their concept art. If you want to take a look into that, I will just look up concept art Centaurs mod for Fallout 4, and here is what they look like.
Whoa.
Oh yeah. Those are. I remember those were those are freaky.
You must have
Those
seen
are
them
more.
probably.
Those are more HP Lovecraftian than centaurs and the.
Yeah, because the ones from
Probably.
3. Are there even centaurs in 4?
No.
There are no centaurs in 4. They were replaced with the mutant hounds.
Thank
Yeah,
God.
that was very silly.
Thank God they added
Honest,
mutant hounds, because those are too spooky for me.
the mod that adds them back in, you've probably seen it in my streams before, but it is a very well done mod. It adds in just the centaurs along with the hounds, and it makes me ask why. It makes me ask why Bethesda doesn't go along with these ideas. Ideas like this is what keeps Fallout very similar to its roots, a very gray gothic type of game.
Yeah, too spooky for me game. I need like the radio up like 90 of the percent of the volume up while I play.
Anyways, what were you talking about with the Brotherhood Tactics Power Armor?
So basically, I want Fallout the power armor from the tactics. It looks like the Enclave armor from Fallout 3. And I either feel like one, and this was like before all of the stuff happened. And it's probably because, not saying it, but what if like um I don't even know if the Enclave's even in Brotherhood tactics, but what if that armor is like Enclave armor from Chicago, and the Brotherhood's like, ooh, we like this armor more better. Let's use this armor instead. Because this armor doesn't look like anything they would have pre-war. But they said in like, but the thing is with Fallout battle like tactics, like there's cars, there's tanks, there's more like advanced like mechanical stuff in Chicago, and that's something I would want to see in 3D, like the Chicago Brotherhood of Steel versus the Enclave remnants in Chicago, or are they like both combined? Not saying that they would both join sides, but who knows?
It's a very interesting idea, but we do know some of Tactics' lore is canon to an extent. We don't know if the entire game is canon or not. So, yeah. So, if you want that power armor to be canon, I'd keep your hopes up and see if the future Fallout games include it. Besides that, How long have we been going on now?
For an hour and 18 minutes.
Hmm. Uh, when do you think? When do you feel like it's a good place to stop?
Um, we could
I mean, we
probably
could stop
stop
now.
now
Yeah.
because we
Yeah.
talked about a lot of
We
stuff,
co-
especially the
we covered a.
power armor. Cause
I don't know if it was that good, but
oh, it was good. It was good. I could probably like cut out a few stuff, but most of it wasn't like boring, because it was actually inter- interesting things.
Now, if you do want to, you can actually find images of what I was talking about in terms of the concept art and the lines I spoke of earlier. So you can just pull those up later, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, this has been pretty fun. We started off with the Enclave, and we ended off with the
Oh,
Fallout
oh,
tactic
oh, no, no,
power
no, no,
armor.
no, 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 no. I have a good explanation, although I have a good explanation for why that armor exists and it looks like the Enclave armor. So back in Nuka Cola where you can find a prototype of the
Nuka World.
Enclave, yeah, Nuka World, where you can find an Enclave power armor suit that was made like pre-war America. I feel like they found them in like military reserves or like bases, and they found this prototype power armor, and that was the armor that was originally supposed to be new for pre-war America for the Enclave at that time, but wasn't
Hmm.
because eventually, the Enclave had more better armor to use. They developed like the Hellfire armor, because in 2 they used different kind of armor as well, and probably didn't have the schematics for. They probably did have the schematics for the prototype, but I know that they made this kind of armor before the bombs drop, and the Enclave was kind of in plan since they already had the oil reserves already done like a week before like the bombs dropped, because I feel like they knew it was gonna happen. Even Mr. House predicted the bombs dropping and only had like 2 years to prepare for it, but needed the chip, but was a few days late to get it. Same thing with like Nuka
Nice.
Cola Quantum, where it was gonna come out the day before the bombs drop. If only like there was like one day or like one more week that the bombs didn't drop, how Fallout would be a bit more different than it
So
is.
many so many things in Fallout would be so much more different if there were maybe a few hour differences, or maybe even a few days or a few
Yeah,
weeks,
a
and
few
that's
days,
true.
few weeks.
I think this is a great place to stop. Just
Yeah.
ending on that note.
yeah,
So,
that's a good spot to stop. So this was
yeah.
the first episode of the Vault Dwellers or
Oh
whatever.
yeah.
I mean, we'll probably come up with the name or something. I think the Vault Dwellers is a good name.
Hell yeah.
Of
I'm
course, amateur studio work here.
Yep, amateur studio work.
Well, it was nice
It was
talking
nice
with you
taking
all.
care of y'all. This has been Give 99 Drid, a Clanker and Jewish Pile Driver, and we'll hopefully see you in the next one.
All
All
right,
right,
Take care.
I'll be going.
Yep.
and cut. All right, we can do
How did I end up here?